So welcome to today's class. My name is Abby Horton, and we are going to be talking about resilience. And we're going to talk about Road to Resilience, Your Best Self. And so when we think about resilience, we really want to think about how that applies to our life in all sorts of domains. So we're going to talk mostly about health and wellness today, but you can take these tools and principles and apply them into many aspects of your life. And if you don't know me, I'm a registered nurse. I teach at the Capstone College of Nursing. I'm a certified health and life coach, and I'm a wellness ambassador and a wellness class educator. So it's really great to be with y'all today. I like for y'all to know a little bit about my background just so that you know where I'm coming from when I'm giving you information and giving you my feedback and perspective. If you have questions and you want to reach out to me privately, you can email me at abby.horton@ua.edu, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So just some objectives for today's class. We want to really think about the concept and definitions of resiliency because they are so varied. And we'll talk about the importance of personal resilience. We'll talk about some national data trends. And we'll also look at, most importantly, strategies to develop and support personal resiliency. And we'll begin the process today by actually developing a personal care plan. So Carolyn McVicker should have emailed you prior to today's class with an actual handout. So if you have that, that would be great to have for you to fill out toward the end of our time together today. But if you don't, it's okay. You might just want to jot down a few notes and you can come back to those when it is an appropriate time for you, when you have a little bit of time to sit down and to think about some goal planning. And I see the chat box. I'm going to take a look and see. They got the worksheet and the resources. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Carolyn. And so we'll go ahead and start with the definitions of resilience. So resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity or trauma or tragedy. It can be threats or significant resources that really call upon your, personal set of skills. And you can even have things like stressors related to your family or relationship problems or serious health problems or workplace and financial stressors. And so this is just one definition of resilience. There are many more. My research area is actually on resilience and stress and coping. And so when we think about resilience, we're going to talk about it more as a process today because that really has been true to my personal experience. But if you look at the literature and the academic side of resilience, resilience is really difficult to define and to categorize. And so today we're just really going to be looking at the practical aspect of resilience and how that shows up in our lives. So some national trends, we work in academia, so we know that some of our students are coming to campus less resilient, and national data trends reflect that. But not only are our young people coming to campus and to college with less resilience, we are seeing less resilience across the board in all adult cohorts in the US right now. And so that asks us to really look and do some self-examination of what can we do to bolster or foster resilience. And we should always really start with ourselves. And so, when we think about the ability to bounce back, which is a great short little definition of resilience, how well do we bounce back? That's a question that we can ask ourselves. And so chronic stress, workload, external factors, those all influence our level of personal resilience. And I always tell my students, for nursing students, this is particularly important, context matters. And so the context of what you're experiencing matters. So you can have a great skill set and, have great personal resilience, but a number of things can happen in your day that will upset that equilibrium and you'll have to, readjust. And so, there's lots of factors that are going to play a role in how resilient you feel or how resilient you appear to be, depending on your day-to-day fluctuations. And so that's important to remember too. It's not a static thing. It's something that's dynamic and it's going to change. And then many of us need extra support to develop resilience. And so I like to tell people that resilience is not a personality characteristic. It's not something that we are born with or we're born without. It really is something that you have to develop, and you have to go through a process of actually, using resilience. It's like a muscle that you need to exercise. So how well do we bounce back after challenges? I like to ask this question at the beginning because this is something that you can ask yourself as you experience new challenges or new stressors. And for some of you, you may bounce back in areas of your life better than others. So you may bounce back well from work stress, but you may not bounce back well from parental stress or relationship stress. And so there are different domains of resilience, and you'll see that that will look differently in your life through different seasons potentially, or different aspects of your life like work versus home life. And so that's important to know as well. So resilience and health, because we have a wellness and health focus, we really want to think about how our lack of resilience can impact our overall health. And so we know that if we are more resilient people, that we are probably going to have better coping mechanisms. Research shows us that. And it also means that we're probably managing our stress better, that we're being more proactive. And so the more resilient you are, overall, the more healthy and the more quality of well-being or wellness you'll report when you're actually being asked to think about those things. And so we want you to have resilience, not only because it's good for your day-to-day functioning, but also it's good for your overall health and wellness. So the definition of health, we want you to really think about that health is more than just the absence of disease. And so just because you don't have a diagnosis doesn't mean that you are in the ideal or optimal state of health. And so the World Health Organization, going all the way back to 1947, of course, they update this usually yearly, but I like to point out that even as far back as 1947, the World Health Organization was really looking at wellness and health being a state of complete mental, physical, social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. And so that's important because when we think about being healthy, it doesn't mean that our lab work is all perfect and we have no diagnosis. It really means that we're in a state where we are functioning at our best, and that we're meeting all of the goals and objectives that we have for our lives, and that our health and our physical, mental, spiritual health is not in any way contributing to issues or problems in our lives. And so a state of being that people define in relation to their own values, personality, and lifestyle. I think that's important to note too, because my view and definition of health and what health means to me is going to be different than what it means for you. And so we can have our own definitions of health, and we're really going to look at the values, the personality, and the lifestyle that play a role in how healthy and how much we have this sense of well-being or this sense of wellness in our lives. So that's important. We also, on the medical side of things, have the Healthy People 2020 goals, and it really looks at having higher quality lives, achieving health equity and eliminating disparities, which we've heard a lot about this year with disparity gaps for vulnerable populations, and that's so important in what we do in healthcare. And then creating good social and physical environments that promote overall good health for everyone, and then promoting quality of life, healthy development, and healthy behaviors across the life stages. So not just in those early adult years, but really, all lifespan, that you're having these healthy goals met. And so this is one of the initiatives that we have as healthcare professionals to promote this. And one way that we can do that is by giving people the tools and resources they need to actually develop resilience. So our lifestyle's impact on our health. When we think about external influences, there are many variables that will influence how we think and how we feel and how we act. And so health beliefs come from those thoughts and those beliefs that we have about ourselves and about what's true or possible for us. And so our health beliefs come from those external or internal influences, and they can be positive or negative. And those health beliefs that we have about ourselves actually will influence our behaviors and our practices. So if we don't believe that we are, worthy of the time or attention that it takes to invest in our health, then our health behaviors are probably not going to be that great. We're probably not going to have a healthy practice of going to see a healthcare provider, and we're probably not going to have the healthiest eating choices because our initial belief is that we don't deserve that. And so that's one example of many of how health beliefs can impact us negatively or positively. And that's just a negative example that's really common for people. And so health beliefs and practices then are influenced by these variables, and those are the things that we need to really take into consideration when we're planning on how to care for ourselves. And so our needs drive our approach to how we decide what we want to, tackle with our health and wellness. And so that's what we're going to do today, some practical goals and some practical strategies for not only improving our health, but also developing this resilience as a product of that. So we talk about in healthcare Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I put this in because really our needs do drive how we, think, act, behave, how we develop those lifestyle behaviors. And we have to meet our physiological needs first, and then we can think about the other levels. So you start at the bottom of the pyramid and you work your way up. This is something that we introduce to our nursing students a lot, and I put it here because I think it's important to know that if you're not, getting your basic needs met, your safety needs met, your need for belonging and love, and those, relationships that are so important to our social development, then you're not going to be able to really reach your full potential and think about being your best self. And so I often will add this next slide because sometimes I think our Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we are more concerned about our devices and our battery life than we are our actual physical well-being. And so that always gets a good laugh from students and from participants in this webinar, because we are very concerned about making sure our phone and our devices are charged, but we're not as concerned sometimes with making sure that we're recharged and refreshed. And so this is a good reminder to worry about ourselves as much as we worry about our smartphones. So resilience, like I mentioned, is dynamic, and there's some great literature out there that, talks about resilience being a process and not just a personality trait. And it's really a nuanced concept, but what I want to hone in on is that resilience really takes skills and it takes time to develop. And usually, unfortunately, it's from exposures to stress and to different stressors in our lives. And so the more stress that you have that you're able to successfully manage, likely the more resilient you are. And so, we don't always want to go through stressors or major life events to be able to develop resilience. And so I've put together some things that have been personally helpful to me in cultivating resilience without having to fully engage in life events or major stressors to develop these skills and habits. So domains of resilience I mentioned earlier can be anything from physical or emotional, spiritual or mental, and it can show up in different ways, like I mentioned with the example of home versus, work life issues of resilience. And so you might be really resilient in one area of your life, but not as resilient in another. And there are many reasons for that. And life experience and the way that you were brought up, the way that you have, been trained professionally. There's so many factors that go into this, but just know that you may have a domain of resilience that needs a little more support, and that is expected. That is something that you would expect to find. You wouldn't expect to be, competent and doing well in all areas, all domains, all of the time. So we're going to see fluctuations in that. So 7 C's of resilience, there are, common themes of resilient people and the tools and resources and skill sets that they have. And so 7 C's really refer to these 7 different types of competencies. And so control, competence, coping, confidence, connection, character, and contribution. So people who are considered to be resilient typically feel like they have a sense of control in their lives. They feel competent in what they're doing, so they feel like they're prepared for whatever it is they're doing. They feel like they can cope. They feel confident in their skills and abilities. They feel a connection to people and to their environment and to the work that they're doing. They have good character development, meaning that they, feel like they have the personal development that they need to be able to bounce back or draw on resources or reach out for help. And then they feel a sense of meaning or contribution. So they feel like that they have a purpose and that they are contributing to something bigger than themselves. And so these are some things that you can really look at to start to examine, do I feel a sense of control? Do I feel competent in my role? Do I feel like I'm coping well, especially during this pandemic? Do I feel like I am, coping and handling my emotions or the circumstances well? Um, do I have confidence in what I'm doing? Do I feel connected to my loved ones and my coworkers and my friends? And that, again, may be really impacted right now because it is, contextual, it is situational. Um, do I feel like there's some personal development or growth that I need? And that goes back to character. And do I feel like I'm contributing to something, greater than myself? And I feel like everyone at the University of Alabama can answer that, because everyone who works at UA is contributing to the greater mission. And so you definitely are contributing to something bigger than yourselves when you're working at UA. So you can make a check mark on that one. So those are some things that you can start to look at as you, decide, okay, where do I need to improve? Where do I want to improve? And moving forward, we can think about building resilience. Really, it works best when we do it within the context of a supportive community. And what the Wellness Work Life, office really has provided is this great WellBama program and this great sense of community on campus. It's really a community within a community for those who regularly participate in the WellBama functions. And so you can build this supportive community to really start to act upon your resilience and to start building those skill sets. And so we know that resilience requires lifelong learning, and we know that it really requires us to build our confidence. And that's what many of us are lacking. And that's why I highlighted that one in the bold font on the previous slide, because I think confidence is where we really can do a lot of work. And then we know that confidence is gained by small wins. And so when we lack confidence, it's sometimes that we don't trust ourselves. And so building trust really means that you set a goal and that you see that goal through and you accomplish it and you celebrate it, even if it's a small win, it's a small goal that you've achieved. And those small wins, as I like to call them, really do end up building your confidence. And so you can, have small wins in health and wellness goals. You can have them in your professional life, in your home life, however that looks for you. We're going to walk through some of that. And then reflection, particularly reflective journaling, where you're looking at self and you're becoming more aware of your thoughts and feelings and emotions, really plays a key role in developing resilience. So we're going to talk about reflective journaling in a little bit. So we're going to do this kind of part 2 of the resilience workshop. So this is where the practical application really comes into play. I think it's important when we, talk about ideas and we share, theories and we talk about, issues, but it's more important to me that you're equipped to really practically tackle some of the things that we know to be an issue, right? Or that we know that we want to work on. And so we want to develop a plan for becoming our best self, and you get to decide what your best self is. So the action plan, I really used it as a basis for, how I want to show up for my life. And because I'm a nurse and was trained as a nurse, I use the nursing process in the nursing care plan model for any time I want to set a goal. And so I'm going to share that with y'all today. So I think it's important to start with determining your core values. So you really need to know what's important to you. And if you were given a list of core values, most of us would say, oh, all of those are great. And most core value lists, they're not going to have something on there that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel like a great value to have. But then when you're asked to only pick 15 or only pick 10 or only pick 5, that gets harder when you have to only choose 3 values. What are your 3 core values? That becomes really difficult. And so when you can identify your core values and you live from those values, meaning you make decisions based on those values, you're living in congruence with what's important to you. And so we have to really stop to think, do we know what those core values are? And so we want to create a personal mission statement based on those values. What is my mission? What am I here for? What is my purpose? And again, the University of Alabama gives us a great model for that because we know what our core values are as employees at the University of Alabama. We know what our mission is at the University of Alabama. And I'm going to link that to Coach Saban and his process a little bit later. But we know those things, but can we readily identify and verbalize those things about us? Do we have our own core values and personal mission statement? And many of us, most of us probably don't. And then we're going to look at the wellness wheel and use that as a guide to plan our next steps. So what areas of wellness do we really want to work on? And I'm going to give you an example using physical health as a category. And so we'll look at that. We'll make a care plan and identify resources, which Carolyn has been so great to already share with you. And then we're going to think about having an accountability partner. And so I'll tell you a story about that from my own personal life. And so when you think about an accountability partner, usually someone comes to mind. So if someone popped in your brain, came to mind when I mentioned an accountability partner, go ahead and write that person's name down, and then think about calling or texting them this afternoon and saying, okay, I'm going to work on some personal development goals. While I'm hopefully some of you probably are still able to work from home, I'm going to really work on that before we return to campus in the fall. And I was wondering if you would be my accountability partner. And so that's a great way to have someone else to hold you accountable for some of the action that you want to take. So with core values, I actually circled these for you. I just picked a few that, would really resonate and work well for this example. But usually you're asked to do this value exercise and pick 10 values. And so when you look at this list, all of these look like great things. We all want to be energetic and excited and engaged and have integrity. But when you can only pick 10, that can be really difficult. And then what if I were to say to only pick 5 of these that were highlighted in red, and then maybe only 3 of these? What would be the 3 that were most important to me? And so when you look at your values, they really link your purpose and your meaning. And that goes back to the Maslow's pyramid. That's what we're here for. We're here for love and belonging and connection and purpose. And so that's where we can sometimes feel like we need a little extra support when we're having stressors, because then our lives are not in alignment with what we believe, to be important in our lives. And then that's when we can have those issues with, stress and negative health beliefs, and it can just impact every aspect of our lives. And so when we think about these values, it asks us to really look deeply at our lives. It asks us to clarify our purpose and to really identify what's important to us. And so this can be really important. I did this exercise about 2 years ago, and some things came up for me that were really surprising. Values that I didn't realize were important to me, but I could see evidence of that showing up in my life, but I hadn't taken the time to really think through those things. And so that really clarified a few things for me when I was having to make some decisions a couple of years ago. And it was all based on just taking a pen and circling some values that, I didn't really think was necessary. I thought that was a step I could skip over. But when I had to do it, I realized that it is an important thing to really narrow down and decide, if I can only pick 3, which 3 am I going to pick? And so take those values and then think about what you want to focus on, what you want to accomplish, what you want to become. And this is where this links back to resilience, because by doing this, you're learning who you are, you're learning what's important to you, And you may be rediscovering this, maybe it's a different season of life and you've had these things figured out, but maybe now you need to reassess. And so, this is really a time where you can plug in the values into a personal mission statement and say, it's my personal mission to live each day. And I pulled these from the slide before with curiosity and purpose and gratitude so that I can live my best life and pay it forward, which was another value. And I will do this by, and then you put your action steps in. And you may not know these yet, but prioritizing my health, continuing to learn, and practicing gratitude. And I love this Lewis Carroll quote about if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. That is a spinoff on, Alice in Wonderland and the Cheshire Cat conversation, if you're all are fans of literature. And so, it's true. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And so that's why it's important to map these things out. So when you look at the wellness wheel, there are these different categories of wellness that relate back to the different domains of resilience. And so I picked physical health as one area that we could focus on. You only want to really change one major area in your life at a time. Otherwise, you'll really likely get overwhelmed and you won't be able to make the progress that you need to make in order to feel motivated to continue on. And I just want to note that motivation is going to wax and wane. And so if you can really develop good habits and discipline, that will sustain you more so than motivation, because you're not always going to be motivated. But if you can develop good habits and discipline, you will have those habits in place. So even on days where you don't feel like working on your goals or you don't feel like working on your personal development, you'll have that habit and the discipline there to support you through that. And then the motivation will come again. So we're going to look at physical health. So when we think about a nursing care plan, we use this, 5-step process to think about assessing and diagnosing and care planning and implementing. And I love this for tackling all sorts of problems. It's a great critical thinking framework. So we assess, like, what areas in our life need work. And then we diagnose, like, what's the root problem? If I'm struggling with my health and wellness, with my fitness level, what is the root problem, in that area that I need to overcome? Is it too much sugar? Is it too much fast food? So that's your diagnosis, plan right there. And then for the plan, what are your next actions going to be? So if it's that you're eating too much sugar or too much processed foods, or going to the drive-through too much, then your next action steps might be to, look for healthy recipes online. It might be to buy a healthy cookbook or to meal prep and plan on the weekends. And so you'll have a plan there. And then you're going to take action. You're actually going to do those things that you outline in step 3. And then once you've actually implemented all of that, you're going to go back and evaluate and say, okay, how well did this work? What worked? What didn't work? What can I change? And then it's cyclical, so you're going to repeat as needed. So we're about to make all of this come together for you. So when we think about goal mapping, and we're doing this for our physical health, if part of what we want to do for cleaning up our diet and actually eating better, making better, healthier choices, and it's to actually accomplish better physical health, that's why we're doing it, then this is something that you can fill in as an action guide. So you can write that goal down, because your ultimate goal might be improve physical health, and you're going to do that through meal planning and prepping and that sort of thing. So you might say that 3 months from now, you want to lose 10% of your body weight. And so you can write down your accountability partner, and then you can write down a positive affirmation about your goal. And this could be for any domain, for any goal that you have. You can use one of these, affirmations, and use one of these sheets to actually fill it out. And then you would actually start to look at the things that you need to accomplish. So what are your goals? Well, you'd want to step on the scale to know how much 10% of your body weight would be. You might want to decide on a meal plan. You might want to begin walking after dinner. And then you're going to just pick 4 from that list. So you can see that it actually skips over where you can just pick 4. Just pick a few things to start with. And then you've already decided that it's by October 31st that you want to meet this date. And so you just commit to that deadline there. And then when you have your goals, you actually want to know how you're going to track them. They need to be SMART goals. So something that's specific and measurable and attainable, and something that you can track, and that it's a reasonable goal that you can accomplish. And so then you want to know, okay, how am I going to know that I stepped on the scale? Well, you can mark it in a tracker or on your smartphone and make a note. Okay, I weigh this much on this date, and then that's how you know you've measured that that goal has been achieved. And then you can create this action item map here where your start goal is always going to be today. I always say, when you want to accomplish something, don't say tomorrow, always say today. And so you make that goal be today, and then you map it out a month, 2 months, 3 months from now. These are deadlines that you can use to actually then come up here and plug in some of your goals. So right here, you're going to step on the scale, and then you might have implemented a walking plan by this point, and then you might have actually you know joined a 5K by this point, and then you might be stepping on the scale here at this point to see if you actually lost that 10% weight. So this is a way for you to actually map out your goals and to see that you've actually implemented the care plan from this slide before. And so Coach Nick Saban says, focus on the process of what it takes to be successful. And when he outlines his process, he means process with a P. He has his own process for what he uses for his football players. And that process is really looking at goal setting and building that confidence in their ability to develop resilience. And so we'll tie that back in a little bit later. And so here's a toolkit of resources that I'm going to quickly go through and show you how I would use these. I do just want to mention, when we think about, building resilience, and we're doing it based on building confidence, and we're building that confidence based on, those small wins, things that, we goal set and we intentionally try to target to accomplish. That is, to me, the most practical way to think about resilience. I'm going to mention at the very end that we started a blog series where we mention, different resources and tools, and kind of give a narrative that goes along with each class. And so when you have time, if you look at the resilience blog for today, I actually linked to an article that was featured on Me and My Family from 3 years ago, and it talks more about my personal resilience story. And so I won't share a lot of that here with you, but I have walked through some really difficult things in my personal life with health and wellness and motherhood, and some different challenges in my life that have called on my courage to be resilient. And so the things that I'm sharing with you today, there's a lot of information, a lot of content here, because really these are all the tools and resources and steps that I took over the last 6 years, kind of narrowed it down into a 1-hour presentation for you. These are the goals and things that I had for myself when I knew that I needed to be more resilient, and I needed to start taking some different steps to really grow personally and professionally. And so this can feel like a lot, and I hope that you're able to take the nuggets and the things that really resonate with you and that feel true for you, and use these and apply these. And so in this toolkit of resources, what I would encourage, because it can feel like so much information, is just to add in the good things, add in things that feel like they're doable, like they're attainable, realistic for you. And then that's going to eventually crowd out kind of the quote unquote bad stuff, the things that you're trying to change. So if it's, that you're drinking, Diet Cokes and Cokes, instead of taking away, maybe you drink 3 a day, instead of taking away a Coke a day, maybe add a water in, and then add another water in, and then another water in, until you're being full off of water and not off of Coke and Diet Coke. We really, as humans, like to add. We don't like to subtract. So add in the good stuff, and then it's going to crowd out the stuff that you're really trying to work on. And that's an easy example, but you could apply that to any of the other domains of wellness or resilience as well. So some self-care on the go. I think it's important to clear your schedule when you're trying to really think about mapping out goals and working on values and creating a personal mission statement. All of those things are really designed at getting to know yourself better. and maybe to get to know yourself in a new season of life. You know, we all have different seasons of life that we go through. And so you're going to change, you're going to grow, you're going to adapt. And it's important to take time to really acknowledge those things and to create rhythms and routines that allow you to stop periodically and do that good self reflection. You know, of course, setting healthy boundaries, making time for, you know, mindful eating and mindful sleeping and hydration and unplugging from social media, you know, stepping away from our emails for a little while, meditation, you know, spiritual practice, all of the things that we know to do, right? This is really kind of a menu for you to think about, okay, what are some things on this list that would be helpful for me in this season of trying to work on my personal development, of trying to build my resilience. And then always remember to celebrate your small wins, because that's where you really get to stop and acknowledge in an intentional way, okay, I have set a goal, I have achieved this goal, and that I have now built my confidence and trust in myself that I'm going to do what I say I do. And that's really what confidence is. It's belief in self. It's believing that you can trust yourself to do what you say you're going to do. And so when we don't keep our goals to ourselves, we lose confidence in our ability, and we lose trust that we can really rely on ourselves, because I quit that diet last time, so why would this time be different? But when you're able to set small goals and say, you know, I met my water goal for today, that is a small win that you can celebrate. I hope this is making sense and really resonating with y'all. And then reflective journaling. You know, it's important to look back in the rearview mirror every once in a while. We don't do that a whole lot in our society. We like to look forward, you know, blinders on, straight ahead. But I think it's really important that we look back, because that's when we actually see how far we've come. We actually get to celebrate how much progress we've made, and we get to see the changes that feel like they were pretty slow. We can look back and see where we've made some big changes, and we've had some big wins that maybe if we hadn't taken the time to self-reflect or to journal, we would have missed. And so that's important too in building that confidence. And some questions you can ask yourself is, you know, what does success look like for me in this situation? You know, where do I belong in this? What is my role? What is my mission in this? And then who is my point person when I need to find some help? And I have a few trusted friends and mentors that when I have a situation, I know immediately who I need to reach out to get a different perspective. You know, someone who can be more objective and can offer you know, a little bit more of an aerial view of the problem I'm having. And so that's always really important. And these are the 3 questions that I use as a way to journal when I'm going through a stressful time or I have a stressful situation. And so these are ones that I would encourage you to start with, but even just writing out free thought on a page, it doesn't have to be a fancy journal, can be really impactful for you as you're starting to make changes in your personal lives and in your professional lives. So some other useful resources, there's a 5-4-3-2-1 technique. It's a grounding exercise that helps you manage anxiety, and you just, you know, identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch. This is really helpful for anyone who's experiencing anxiety or a panic attack, but if you're just unfocused and distracted, it's also another great tool. So I like to share that one with you. And then the bare feet in the picture above is a grounding technique. You know, there's a lot of research that talks about our, you know, stress and anxiety being reduced when we have contact with nature. And that doesn't mean, you know, walking from your car to the parking lot. You know, you really want to actually get out and enjoy nature. And so, you know, whether it's bare feet on a beach or bare feet on grass, that's really grounding and helpful for you, because we're meant to be in communion with nature much more than we are. Then there's some apps here. The M is for motivation. And so if you want to have some words of affirmation kind of texted to you every day, you can set reminders, and it's a free app that will send you a quote. I do love quotes, and so that's a fun one I use. And then Headspace or Calm, or there's one called Think. Those are all meditation apps that are free, and they have in-app purchases, but those are some great ways to start incorporating meditation and mindfulness into your day. If you need some assistance and it's not natural to you to kind of quiet the mind, those apps have guided meditations that are really helpful very quick and easy to implement. 3 to 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long, period of time to see benefit. And then Totally Stress Free on Spotify. This is a playlist that I think is really calming and a lot of people enjoy. And if you don't like this particular genre of music, I would recommend you creating a Spotify or Pandora account and creating a music playlist that's really relaxing for you. Music therapy is really underrated at times in our lives. So, create a soundtrack for this summer for you to play when you're stressed. And then Yoga by Adrienne is a free YouTube channel, and she has a lot of free resources online on YouTube on her webpage where you can be a beginner in yoga and actually start to develop a yoga practice, which can be very beneficial for your mind and your body. And so that's a great resource I really recommend for people to try. Even if you don't have full mobility, you can't exercise to full capacity maybe, or you have some injuries or things, you can do chair yoga. So yoga is a great way to start to move your body intentionally every day. And then breathing, we often don't breathe, fully expand our lungs. I know I always am talking really fast when I'm, doing things or teaching or, just going about my day, and I'll be like, I'm out of breath. And it's because I'm not pausing enough, or I'm not, breathing deeply enough. And so that can actually cause a physiological induced anxiety just because we're not taking the time to really slow down and deep breathe. This is particularly true when we eat. Sometimes we inhale our food. Nurses do this for sure. We're almost conditioned to eat as quickly as we can and then stop for breath and hope that we get a little bit of a break. And so I have to be really mindful about this as well. But this is a YouTube video of how to do boxed breathing, which is 4-breath breathing that really retrains and resets your central nervous system and really aids in calming you down. And so this is a great technique that I think everyone should be taught in school. I think we should all have to learn how to control our breathing because it does really reset our bodies. And then Mel Robbins has a 5-4-3-2-1 technique, which is a little different than the first one I mentioned. And she talks about, when you are stuck and you're feeling like you need to make a change. And I always think about a roller coaster when you're deciding whether you really want to get on the roller coaster or not. You do this 5-4-3-2-1 and you just get on the roller coaster. That's her technique. She went through a battle of depression, and she's a former attorney that had bankruptcy and life events, and now she's a motivational speaker that does a lot with mental health. And so she was very depressed and going through a battle with depression and not wanting to get up in the morning. And so she one day just counted 5-4-3-2-1 and pretended like she was a rocket blasting out of bed. And she did that every day until she started to change her life. And that was just a simple technique that she used that has now launched her into this new career. And she has a book and lots of resources, but she's a really good motivational speaker if you're needing some of that right now. And then one of my favorite counselors introduced me to this concept. She's a good friend, and she does a lot of counseling for healthcare professionals. And she has a rule, the 2-2-2 rule, and it's to have something on the horizon. So something to look forward to. So every 2 weeks, have something planned. Maybe go out for the evening. Every 2 months, go out for the weekend. And then every 2 years, go out for a week. And so sometimes that doesn't feel doable. But a good take on this rule could be that every quarter, every, 3 months or so, that you have something to look forward to, whether it's taking a day off, or it's meeting a friend for lunch, or it's, exploring a new restaurant or a new nearby town, whatever that looks like for you, whatever is fun for you. We are conditioned as humans to have something kind of on the horizon to look forward to. And if we don't, we can often feel really melancholy and stressed because we can get in a rut. And so it's important to have something on the horizon to look forward to, and just use whatever works for you to make that possible this year. I know we probably all are dealing with some disappointments or things that have been canceled or postponed, or, trips that we can't take or what have you. But there are things that we can still look forward to, and it just might be a simpler version of that. So I would really encourage you, especially during this particular time, to have something to look forward to in the next couple of weeks to months. And then a TED Talk that I really enjoy, and I share this a lot, is How to Make Stress Your Friend. And it talks about that stress is necessary and that stress is important to our overall well-being, because we need to learn how to manage our stress. And so this is a great one that, when you choose to see stress as being helpful, Kelly McGonigal actually says she thinks that this builds the biology of courage. And courage and confidence are really, linked in a way that's difficult to tease them apart. And so if you can have courage and have confidence, you're going to start building those skill sets that you need for resilience. And then some books that I enjoy, these are, more academic reading, but you can get them at the local bookstore. So I think one that I really enjoy is Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. She is famous now, so you might know who she is. I started talking about her several years ago, and no one knew who I was talking about. But she has a podcast. She has many books out. She's a social worker who works in Houston at a university there. And the work that she does is really on shame and vulnerability and mental health, has contributed a lot to what we know about mental health today. And so I always recommend her books. But the rest of these here are also great reads as well, and you'll learn something from each of them. But these are ones that I've personally read and would recommend for you to start here. And then resources and blogs and websites. These are some that I think are good starting points. Of course, I would start with Brene Brown or Gretchen Rubin. The TED Talks certainly are great. And then Mel Robbins has some great content on her site. And then the last link is Franklin Covey. And so if you want to do more work with developing a personal mission statement, Franklin Covey has the, planners and all of the, organizational tools and things for offices and organizing your, personal and work life. But they also have a personal mission statement generator that you can retrieve at this site. And I think that's a great tool to use if you want to, really dive deeper into the personal mission statements and the values and things like that. That would be a great resource for you. I actually was introduced to this concept when I was doing a leadership academy 3 years ago, and we worked through the personal mission statement from the Franklin Covey website, and it was very impactful. And then some resources in terms of podcasts. Brene Brown's podcast is called Unlocking Us. And then you have the Mel Robbins Show, Cultivate Your Life with Laura Casey, and then the Charged Life with Brendan Burchard. And then if you don't know anything about the Enneagram, I think that is a tool that's underutilized. I was introduced to it at a workshop at the university in November of 2018, and found that to be such a helpful tool in self-discovery and learning about my personality and my values and really my core motivations. And so the Enneagram is a great tool that you can explore. There's lots of great books out there. One that I would recommend is called The Road Back to You, and that's a good one to start exploring. It's a personality typing, but it is more comprehensive than something like the DISC or the Myers-Briggs or Strengths Finders. So if you like personality typing information, I think you'll really love that. And the podcast is called the Institute for Conscious Being. And Dr. Hollowell Dr. Joseph Holloway in Gadsden or Anniston, Alabama, puts that together, and it's a great tool and resource. So you'll love that. He is a local to Alabama. And then some other TED Talks and things that I think would be helpful if you really enjoy doing more of the audio visual learning is, some of the grit and vulnerability resources out there that really link to happiness and really talk about, how to really control your mental well-being, your happiness, how to be a great leader, all of these things are interrelated. And so once you watch some of these, I think you'll really see how they're connected. But Grit is one that's really good, and Angela Duckworth's book's actually one that I recommend and have read myself, and it's a great practical resource and tool. And then last, I have the How to Become More Resilient. And this is Cy Wakeman, and she is an HR specialist, and she actually now does a lot of work with developing, different resources and products for large companies who want to really offer their employees with personal development and growth resources. And so she is a very, straightforward, no nonsense personality that really gets to the practical of what it means to, work on your personal growth and development, and how to really build a practical toolkit for, becoming your best self and bettering your life. So she's a fun one too to check out. And so kind of linking back to Coach Saban, when I put this presentation together originally, we were heading into the national championship, and then of course, unfortunately lost, and then came across this quote from years ago. This is not a new quote from Coach Saban, but it says, one thing about championship teams is that they're resilient. No matter what's thrown at them, no matter how deep the hole, they find a way to bounce back and overcome adversity. And what a great quote, and what a great philosophy for us to adopt, because it's true that we do, if we want to be, champions in our lives, if we want to show up as champions in our lives for our families and for our work and for our friends, then we really want to build upon, this mindset that regardless of what comes our way, we are going to overcome, we are going to bounce back, and we're going to use whatever the challenge is as a learning opportunity and as a lesson, so that then we can go out and we can pay it forward. And so I think that's so important to think about, especially during the times that we're in right now. He also talks a little bit more in detail about the process. And he talks about the process is really what you have to do day in and day out to be successful. So showing up here, that's what you're doing. You're part of the process. We try to define the standard that we want everyone to sort of work toward, adhere to, and do it on a consistent basis. And the things that I talked about before, being responsible for your own self-determination, having a positive attitude, having great work ethic, having discipline to be able to execute on a consistent basis. Whatever it is you're trying to do, those are the things that we try to focus on, and we don't try to focus on as much as the outcomes as we do on being all that you can be. And so, very conversational quote from Coach Saban, but what he's saying is to control what you can control. Have a good attitude, have self-determination, be positive, have that good work ethic, have the discipline, show up consistently, even when you don't see results, be consistent with it, and then focus on what you can control, because most of the time you can't control the outcome, but you can control what you do before the outcome. So you can control the time and the effort that you put into it, the learning that you put into it, and the outcome is going to be what it is. And so if you think about the goal of losing 10% of your body weight, you may not actually lose 10% of your body weight by October 31st. So you can't control the outcome, but you can control whether or not you get an accountability partner today. You can control whether or not you drink more water than you drink Cokes. You can control whether you meal plan. And honestly, that's more important than the outcome. Who you become on the way to reaching your goal is much more important than if you actually reach the goal or not. Because even if you don't lose 10% of your body weight, as the example from the goal mapping, you still get somewhere that you weren't before. You still made progress, and you should still celebrate that win, because that's going to lead to more changes. And consistency is really the key there. And so then we'll leave you with his final quote, which is to focus on the process of what it takes to be successful. And that's what I would encourage. And that's where that trust in yourself, and that's where that confidence in yourself is going to build that resilience, so that when you do have a problem, not when, but when you do have a problem, a challenge, a stressor, you have the skills that it takes to actually overcome that, and to actually have gratitude for it, because on the other side of that challenge or stressor, you're going to be better for it, and you're going to be able to help others with that. And so some upcoming classes I want to tell you about before we finish out. We have a Don't Wait, Hydrate on July 15th and Your Health After 40 on July 29th. And then we've got our social media here. And this is a link for the blog I mentioned where I share a little more of my personal story about resilience. So we would love for you to follow us on social media. And then we have some great resources about, well-being programming, COVID-19 resources, and health and life coaching. So all of this information is here and is through the HR website or the wellness.ua.edu website. And so while we're finishing up, I just want to say resilience is often more challenging for me to talk about because it is so personal. It's what I do in my work life. It's what I have really had to use in my personal life. And so it can be challenging to teach because it is so personal to me. But what I want to say about resilience as you're thinking about, how you can start the process is just to pick one thing and to not get overwhelmed and to be encouraged, and just know that it's going to take showing up consistently before you start to see the effects or the outcome that you desire. And I implement this all the time, so I don't want you to think that this is a program that I've put together that I don't use. And this actually was really impactful for me a couple of weeks ago when I checked in with my accountability partner and I was going through some goal setting. My accountability partner said, Abby, you've told me that you don't feel well and that you've been struggling with, the things, and she repeated them back to me. She said, I really, I don't know anything about it, but do you need to get some help? And so based on that one conversation, I made a phone call and went to see my doctor. And I had been struggling with some health issues and struggling to meet some of my own fitness and health goals. And because of that conversation, because of the plan that I put in place for myself, I was actually, really encouraged and motivated to go back to the doctor and advocate for myself a little bit more, and actually got a diagnosis of hypothyroidism and have been on medication for about a week now. And I feel so much better. And it was simply because I had this plan in place for my resilience and for my health. And I had a friend that was willing to be that accountability partner for me. So this was just this month, y'all. So I really want to encourage you that if this doesn't seem like it's something that's doable or something that's helpful, I am definitely a testament to this process works when you put it in place and you work on it. And, I didn't have to have that be the thing that motivated me, but it was. And so I hope that's an encouraging thing for you to take away from this talk today, that maybe this process can help you as well. So I know that we might have some questions, and I know that we're at our time, but I'm happy to stay and answer any questions that you might have. I don't see any in the chat, but if you want to pop some questions in there, you're welcome to ask. I'll give us a few minutes. I certainly appreciate you joining us today, and I hope this was helpful. Good, thank you. Thanks, Carolyn. Okay. I don't see any questions, but if you think of something later, you have my contact information, and please feel free to reach out. I hope that you go and do something for yourself today. Go text a friend, go print the resources or the worksheet. And oh, I do see a question popped up in the Q&A. Health and life coaching. Yes, so health and life coaching is available. I'm a certified health and life coach, and it's free for you as a benefit as a UA employee. And so if you want to schedule an appointment, I do 30-minute appointments, and we can walk through some of these goal setting worksheets and resources together. We can talk about any concerns that you might have, health or life related, and I can be an accountability partner for you. Sometimes it's helpful to have someone that isn't in your day-to-day life be that accountability partner. So if you're interested in that, just send an email to my email address and we can work out a time to do a Zoom call or a traditional phone call and we can get that set up for you. But it's totally free. And it's directed by you, so it's all self-initiated, so we can meet and work on the goals that you have. Thank you. Taffy says, how cool is that? Well, yeah, we're really excited about it. It's new, and we're really wanting to get that off the grounds because we want to support you all. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions, but I'm so thankful for y'all. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. And until next time, have a good one. Roll Tide.